60 Minutes, Volume 1, Number 1. New opening, take 1.
Good evening. This is
Seís Minutes.
It's a kind of a magazine for television, which means it has the flexibility and diversity of a magazine adapted to broadcast journalism.
In celebration of 60 Minutes' 50-year anniversary, I, Janice McManice, alongside my fellow anchor, Burt Macintosh, am here today to discuss the history of this program.
Furthermore, we're going to discuss why 1968 was the perfect year for the first debut of 60 Minutes, and last but not least,
this television program's lasting impact and legacy on the American public.
Let's dive right in. 60 Minutes was first debuted on September 24th, 1968 on CBS, following the highly controversial Democratic National Convention that was widely televised. Funnily enough, Janice, the one cameraman at the convention was the CBS cameraman.
How about that? The Democratic Convention allowed people like Don Hewitt, the founder of 60 Minutes, to see a potential business in a TV news magazine program that focused on current issues and specific events that affected the U.S.
Except Hewitt hated the word documentary and thought it showed the voice of a corporation. And that's not what the Americans wanted.
You sure are correct, Bert. Everyone wants to listen to the people, and not some boring historical documentary.
The first two reporters on 60 Minutes fit the profile of this new TV news magazine program idea perfectly.
The first reporter was Mike Wallace, a tough reporter and journalist known for asking the hard questions.
He set for himself a personal goal that 60 Minutes should reflect reality, and he centered his job around this philosophy.
Wallace became the face of this program, bringing popularity to the show with his 20 Emmy Awards.
The second reporter alongside Mike Wallace was Harry Reasoner.
Reasoner was more well known for his wit, his calmness in front of the camera, and his easygoing attitude that made him well liked in CBS. I guess, Daniel, Bert, you could say that people had a reason to like him.
Oh, God, yeah! By 1960, nearly all American households owned a television, and it was the first year that a presidential debate was televised between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy. But the TV's role became more prominent during this decade. As it televised the Civil Rights era, John F. Kennedy's assassination, the space race, and the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. As David Brinkley, an NBC News reporter, once said, television showed the American people to the American people.
So as you already know, the 60s were a time of protesting by Americans, especially young Americans. And they protested to demand an end to the unfair treatment of black citizens, they protested to demand an end to the war in Vietnam, and they protested to demand full equality for women. Police brutality also emerged out of this protesting movement, all of which was captured by newscasters.
When 60 Minutes debuted in 1968, producer Don Hewitt wanted the format of the show to make the hosts the reporters, and to always feature stories that were of national importance, but focused upon individuals involved with or in conflict with those issues.
So right off the bat, the first episode of the show included a segment in which the hosts, Mike Wallace and Reasoner, interviewed the then Attorney General Ramsey Clark about police brutality. The debut also featured a digression, a brief scripted piece in which two silhouetted men, one of them being Andy Rooney, who was a radio and television writer who later joined CBS, they discussed the presidential campaign. And also in the debut, the show took its viewers on a look inside the headquarters suites of presidential candidates Richard Nixon and Hubert Humphrey during their respective parties' national conventions that summer, again boosting the image of the show as the news magazine that it was. This is a message to our sponsors, Alpo Dog Food, the one and only sponsor of 60 Minutes. Thank you. As we were saying, thank you, Alpo Dog Food.
The 60 Minutes program thrived during this decade, as the 1960s and especially 1968 represented a shift in American government towards civil rights, a rapidly declining support for the Vietnam War, led by many young adults and college students. The amount of interesting stories were abundant, and it allowed for a format that included two serious news investigations, along with a personal profile or human interest story, to become hugely successful.
So instead of just having serious news investigations, the personal profile and human interest aspect to the program appealed to the American public. This is reflected in 60 Minutes' TV ratings in 1968, when it was the 10th most popular TV show in America, with number 1 being Hawaii Five-0, but who does not watch Hawaii Five-0? 60 Minutes changed America's TV landscape, as in 1968, it was the first time a TV news magazine or documentary cracked the top 10 most popular TV shows. And that was previously completely dominated by comedies, action, adventure, and drama shows.
All in all, 60 Minutes opened up a new world of opportunity, not just for television, but for the media as a whole. Before this show debuted, the television news that aired was dull and unpopular. It was also unprofitable and was usually supported by networks, hit comedies, and dramas.
But this show changed that. 60 Minutes, like we said, became one of the most popular shows on television, indicating a public appetite for serious news coverage. Now, 60 Minutes is the longest continuously running primetime TV program ever, having 16 million viewers every week.
Not only has it been in the Nielsen top 10 for the last 23 seasons, but it's the only show to have the highest ratings in 3 different decades.
60 Minutes is the most honored TV show of all time, or TV series of all time, with 75 Emmy Awards.
It is also the most profitable, having earned CBS an estimated $2 billion.
So we'd like to
leave you here with a quote by founder Don Hewitt that really paints the picture for the show.
He said,
Instead of dealing with issues, we tell the stories. 6 minutes.